Welcome to FUNC YOU UP, the podcast that gives you the best of functional medicine, nutrition, and wellness in 8 minutes or less.
Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Miller, clinical nutritionist.
And this is Diana Orchant, functional medicine registered dietitian.
We are so happy to have you join us today on our 1-year anniversary of the FUNC YOU UP podcast. And for this very special episode, we have a special guest. We have with us Borough President Eric Adams, who's going to be talking to us a lot about his health journey and really just good information about how we can all take better steps in our health. So thank you so much for being here, Eric. And please, feel free to start us off with your health journey and kind of what has brought you to this platform today.
Thank you, Michelle and Diane, for really allowing me to come on. And it's about really spreading a message of really hope and prosperity. As I move around the city, I often ask a question to an audience: how many of you know someone that's experiencing a chronic disease? Rarely do I sit in a room and don't have all the hands going up. It doesn't matter if you're African American, if you're Jewish, you're Muslim, whichever group you are a part of, we all know someone that's experiencing a chronic disease. And chronic disease hijacks your life. You're no longer who you are. It takes you to another place, and really you're no longer even present. And that's what happened to me. And, I've been in some dark moments in my life, and particularly one of the darkest periods when I was a child. I remember cycling out of it, and my mom said, Eric, if you are fortunate to live long enough, you're going to be misfortunate to experience pain. The only question you must answer is, how do you turn pain into purpose? And I use that every time I hit those dark periods. I know that I'm not buried, I'm planted. And I want the fruits of my harvest to help people. And that's what happened with me with my chronic disease. 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I woke up, couldn't see the alarm clock. I had vision loss and permanent nerve damage in my hands and feet. My hands and feet were tingling. But men, you got to drag us to the doctor's office, and I couldn't even feel my right thigh. I thought it was from football injury, nerve damage. And I had a terrible pain in my stomach. And that's what sent me to the doctor's office, that discomfort. I thought it was colon cancer because it wasn't gas, it wasn't moving. And when I went to the doctor's office and he looked at my blood work when I came out of sedation after the colonoscopy, he says, Eric, you have an ulcer, but your real problem is your diabetes. You're in a coma level. I'm surprised you're not in a coma right now. And that just put me on an entirely new journey.
So at that point in your life, before you woke up, that the day before this happened, where would you have, rated your health at that point? Did you feel you were really unhealthy at that point?
It's a great question, because we normalize being unhealthy. We say to ourselves that, okay, I'm waking up with these pains. Well, you're 50 now, so this is part of the package. We normalize, okay, my vision is blurred, I'm losing sight, well, I'm getting older, this tingling in my hands and feet, all of those aches and pains. As I started to look back over it, I was like, man, you were sick.
The warning signs were there, yeah.
And I would have, if you were to sit down and ask me the day before, Eric, where are you health-wise? I would probably say, well, I'm an 8, because I was occasionally, I'm in the gym, believing that my body settled into the discomfort of being unhealthy. And so I even fooled myself that I was healthy to the point of I would have described myself as an 8.
Wow. I mean, it's so interesting because I feel like so many people must resonate with this, because it's often not until we're diagnosed with the disease that we realize, oh my goodness, like we haven't been feeling well this whole time. So I guess, what changes did you make? What role did food and lifestyle kind of have in the changes that you made?
Well, I went to, when my internist told me what my state was, and as the borough president, I have a lot of relationship with a lot of the presidents of the hospitals. I called up all of my presidents to say, listen, I want to try something different. I walked into the doctor's office that day with no medicine. I walked out with medicines for my vision loss, medicine for my nerve damage, 3 medicines for my diabetes, medicine for my ulcer, medicine for my blood pressure, medicine for my cholesterol. I was like Walgreens, with so many medicines.
Walking pharmacy, yeah.
And so I called up my presidents of the hospital and said, listen, I want to do something different. I don't want to inject myself with insulin. I saw my mom do it for 7 years. She was diabetic at that time for 15 years. And they all sent me to the experts in their hospitals. And they said, Eric, listen, this is your DNA. It runs in your family. It's hereditary. And it was amazing that, just to, that white coat and stethoscope means so much. And to push back on that is a challenge. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm not a doctor, but darn it, I was an ex-cop. I know how to do investigations, and I know how to read. So I went to the computer and just started reading. And I didn't type in living with diabetes, what the pamphlets had. I typed in reversing diabetes. That one word sent me on a different search engine. And all of this information came up, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. Greger, Dr. Barnard, some of the other professionals who I call the Steve Jobs of medicine. They're not trying to stay within the boundaries. And I went to see Dr. Esselstyn. He told me, listen, if you change your diet, you can reverse your disease. And I remember saying to him, what kind of nut is this? I'm going blind and he's telling me to stop eating steak?
But times,
I went
right?
home and just went on a whole food I went on a whole food plant-based diet. 3 weeks, my vision came back. 3 months, my nerve damage went away. My diabetes went in remission. My ulcer that sent me to the doctors in the first place went in remission and went away also. Cholesterol normalized, blood pressure normalized. I dropped 35 pounds. My body just took on a new shape. I tell everybody, I don't have a 6-pack. I have a case now. I am so in shape. I've never been in this shape before. And it's just my mind is clearer and just the energy, And so my mother at 80, you remember I said 15 years diabetic, 7 years on insulin. Mom joined me, and 2 months after, she called me in tears and said, baby, they took me off insulin. It's just the body is ready to heal. We just have to get out of its way.
It's so true. I think it's so interesting when we get to work with patients on, a day-to-day basis. We get to actually be rewarded by seeing this happen over and over. And it never fails to surprise people how well their bodies work when they give the body what it actually just needs. And you mentioned this before, we normalize, and we're so good at adapting. We are humans that are meant to adapt. I mean, look what we've done in the last 6 months, right? We've adapted, but you can't let your health adapt. You have to be able to hold it to that optimal level of function. And all that requires is just good whole food nutrition for the majority of the time.
That's so true. And you said something that's very important. In my early years as a police officer, the city was filled with crime. And I remember as a police officer going to visit a family or block where someone lost its son or daughter to violence. And the parents would come to me and say, is my child going to be all right? And I remember I would say, I'm sure they'd be safe, but I knew inside that it's only a matter of time I'm gonna come back to this block, and that could be their child. And that's traumatizing, that's PTSD. You can't tell me that if you're a medical professional and you're watching people who are diabetic, they start with metformin, then insulin, then kidney failure, then blindness, then amputation. You can't tell me that is not impacting you and you're not going to experience PTSD after patient after patient after patient. And so just as there's a negative to something, there's a positive. So if you are a healthcare professional and you're watching people go from being sick to heal, it has to play a positive in your internal psyche. and it's actually healing you in the process emotionally, because our body is just a physical presence. We have an anatomy of our spirit, and that needs to heal also from the trauma we experience.
Yeah, it's so true. It's really great to hear it from you as well. And you know, when I think about all the changes that you make it sound so easy, but can you kind of like, I'm sure it was an entire journey in itself. And so can you just tell us a little bit about how you stayed on track, kind of met your personal health goals, and then also were able to create and then maintain these habits? Because we see so many people, they have these lofty goals, they want to create healthy habits, but then they kind of fall off the wagon. And so, you know, maintaining those habits is half the battle. So it's
so
just
true.
So interesting to hear your perspective.
So true. Well said. Well said. And there's a cycle. The first 2 weeks was hell week, you know, because, you know, food is like heroin. You know, I was addicted.
Yeah.
I had to acknowledge that, you know, I mean, think about it. What do we do that we know is harmful for our bodies, but we can't stop doing it anyway? That's drugs. I was an addict.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up the second day when I started binging and dreaming about food, fried food, sugary food, processed food. I said, wow, I'm an addict. I'm hooked on food. And it was a demoralizing feeling for me. And I knew that I have to dig deep if I want to get through this, because it wasn't simply saying, okay, I'm going to stop eating such and such, because I didn't know how to cook. And the food I was making myself, I knew it was not long standing. And so I leaned into the uncertainty and said that I'm going to give it the commitment of that for a period of time. And that's the joy of a whole food plant-based diet. The short period of time of reversing your condition is really exciting. You see results. And so I started by learning one meal a week that I can cook. Then I started learning about spices, the power of spices. And I started building my life around my meals and not my meals around my life. So I started doing, chopping up my food. I invested in things like a veggie bullet, and I chopped up my vegetables. I put them in my Tupperware canisters. And so this way I didn't have to start from scratch every day. I was able to just dig into the canister, make my salads. I started making my jars of oatmeal and, you know, using instant freeze. I started learning new meals. And then I threw out all the rules about cooking, you know, where we believe you only can eat this during the day, this during the evening. And I started learning about the science of salty taste, sweet taste, while not using table salt, you know. So I started creating this whole repertoire of new meals. And I started saying, first I must fuel myself before I'm able to put this vehicle on the road of anything. And so you will come to my meetings sometimes. I will have meetings entertaining people who are solving issues or dignitaries, and I'll have my big Buddha bowl with my food, because I say, listen, I'm eating. And if this offends you, then you should be in this meeting, because I have to take care of Eric first, you know? So that was really important for me, learning how to snack, learning the type of food, really having a different relationship with food and understanding its proper role.
Everything you said is so huge. I mean, having a new relationship with food. And I think if you are choosing to make your health a higher priority, you have to choose to make your food a higher priority. And what you said of my world, my day was revolving around my food, and kind of pushing food up on that list and really recognizing it for the therapeutic aid that it really is. That's such a big part of it. And I do think, there are the ebbs and flows. Life is still happening. You're always going to get curveballs, but you designed a lifestyle that set you up and prepared you each day to go in with these resources, so that you weren't stuck on, a random side of town that only had fast food. You had stuff on you. You kind of prepped and thought all of that through.
Well said. Well said. And you said a lot just now. It's almost like that airline crew that says during an emergency, put the mask on yourself before your traveling companion, because if we're no good to ourselves, we can't be good to anyone. And so if I'm going somewhere, when I start my day and I look at my calendar, I am mapping out. If I'm going to be in a car all day traveling around, I have a little cooler where I will put my food inside there. If I'm going out to a restaurant to entertain someone for some business or something, I'm finding out what's on the menu. Because, folks who are listening to this show, every restaurant is a vegan restaurant. Just look at the appetizers menu. If you see someone have steak and broccoli on the menu, tell them, hey, bring me the broccoli instead. If you see someone have asparagus and chicken, hey, bring me the asparagus instead. So I look down that menu if I'm at a restaurant and I put together my meal. And oftentimes my friends would say, wow, let me have what he has. But if you are focused and committed, nothing would get in the way of ensuring you're going to have that healthy lifestyle that you're looking for.
That's such an interesting point. I think so many people are so afraid of like ruffling feathers and, just wanting to go with the easy option on the menu. But it's so true. I mean, what you said about if they have, steak and broccoli, you get the broccoli. Or the same would go if you have fried chicken. They have chicken. You had to take that chicken and fry it. So it's like, it's interesting that, you can be in control.
Yes.
And you've talked about your initiative of making New York City the healthiest big city in the world. Can you just share your ideas on that with us?
It's fascinating to me that we feed crises in the city. And I'm not trying to be the nanny. What you do in your backyard, on your grill, you have the right to do it. More power to you. But not on my dime.
Yeah.
Tax dollars should not go to feeding the crises. 70% of 12-year-olds have early signs of heart disease. And we can point directly to the food we feed them. We feed New Yorkers, our students, our babies, 960,000 meals a day. And those meals are some of the most unhealthy meals. So while the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene is spending millions to fight childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, childhood asthma, we're feeding 960,000 meals that causes the same thing. And so my focus is to say, hey, New York, you are giving me your tax dollars. Now let's look at every place that we're feeding people. Department of Correction, Department of Homeless Services, seniors, health and hospital, Department of Education. All of those places, we should be feeding people healthy food. And by doing so, we'll be changing behavioral patterns, and we will be doing a service to our health and hospital corporation, because people won't be spending all of our tax dollars on constantly being ill all the time. And that is why I want to focus on how do I show people to live healthy, live longer, and not live in a state of chronic diseases.
Well, and this has just been so inspiring and so refreshing for us to hear. And I do want to thank you, because I think as Borough President and as serious as you take your health, when someone in your position prioritizes health and prioritizes nutrition, you give permission to others around you to do the same. So we thank you so much for your time today, and we thank you so much for what you're doing, because this is a big message we got to get out to just about everybody. So
yes,
we'll all keep fighting the good fight.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate both of you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Take care. So if you feel today's episode is one that really resonated with you, or you would love to share this episode with one of your loved ones, please feel free to like, subscribe, and share our episodes. And we always like to hear from you.
You can reach out to us at FUNCYouUp@physiologicnyc.com or via our Instagram at PhysiologicNYC.
Thanks for joining us for this first year of Funk You Up. The next year will be better than ever.
We can't wait.
You've been listening to Funk You Up. Be sure to like, review, and subscribe for more daily tips on living well.